All right. Well, we got about 10 minutes before class starts. Thought I'd mention a few things. I saw the register got this too. Microsoft has something called Cosmos, which I've never used in Azure, which is apparently their database. And apparently the master key that controlled everything was exposed somehow. A company called Wiz found it and told Microsoft, and they paid them a $40,000 bug bounty, and they found out they cannot fix it. The customers have to regenerate their keys. So they are sending emails to customers saying they fixed the vulnerability, but you need to regenerate all your keys. And he said he found a long-lasting secret. So the details are not all here, but this sounds a lot like the Active Directory golden ticket in Kerberos, which I think lasts for 25 years. So if somebody finds that, then you have to recreate your entire domain, which is a huge job. Anyway, that's another security problem for Microsoft. So the Ragnarok ransomware gang has given up and quit. This happens pretty often. I don't really know why, but the criminal economy is pretty chaotic. There's a lot of hiding and takeover and rebranding a lot. So they've done what they often do. They've released the master decryptor. They had a website with their victims threatening to expose the data, and they deleted everything and just left instructions how you can get the key. And somebody tested it and said the key in fact works. So this is the end of one gang. What usually happens is the players just reassemble into another gang. And I haven't seen any articles that explain why this happens in detail, but I know this sort of thing happens with drug gangs and criminal gangs and organized crime here and there. It's fairly common that they bicker and fight. It reminds me a lot of rock bands that keep failing, and then the people scatter and form new rock bands. All right. So there's a scientific study that has tested and determined what I think anybody could have told them, that if you let people turn off their cameras, Zoom is significantly less annoying, and people are less fatigued and they're less miserable that day and the day after. If you don't make them leave their cameras on, then they don't mind Zoom so much, which I think is quite common. Now, Zuckerberg is pushing the new Facebook product coming, where you will live in a 3D world wearing like an Oculus Rift. You will have this 3D world of cartoon characters sitting around a conference table. And I don't know if that would be fatiguing or not. It sounds pretty fatiguing, but I don't know. So, boosters are coming very soon. 3% of people are already eligible, apparently, in San Francisco. I've heard this before. You could actually get a booster by just going to your doctor if you are in an eligible group, like you have immunosuppressed suppressed immune system or something. And so apparently they're already talking about that. And pretty soon, hopefully, they'll have it for everybody. I mean, by the modern standards, I think I should be up for a booster. Pretty much everybody. 6 months. That's not a very long time. And the data from Israel, well, I know some of the people I know are very, very afraid. The data from Israel is pretty damning, suggesting that a lot of people get sick. They still claim not too many people really get sick if you're vaccinated, even against Delta. But Israel is going, I think, back into lockdown. It looks like we might be. And I think this thing is not over at all yet. And the booster shots would be a big step towards having at least some regions that can go back to normal. Like if in San Francisco, where a lot of people got vaccinated, I think if a lot of people got the booster, we'd be more or less okay, at least in town. Although, I'm supposed to travel to Texas in a month or two and to London in a month or two, and I'm beginning to highly doubt that either of those things is going to happen. Looks to me like travel to those places is going to be forbidden or contraindicated. We're going to see. Anyway, San Francisco is going to have a hydrogen-powered ferry, which is interesting. And one thing which I had not known is that the environmentalists are not happy about this. They don't approve of hydrogen power. They say, in fact, hydrogen power is created from hydrocarbon and releases carbon into the atmosphere, so it's not green, which I did not know. So, in principle, you could make hydrogen, I think, in a carbon-neutral way, but that is not the way it's normally done. That's not the cheapest way. Is storage of an access token in phone storage considered a security flaw? Well, It's certainly a failure of best practice. I mean, this is what I did a whole lot of. I found people that just store passwords on a phone. And if in general, I'd say the general best advice. I don't think there's like a federal registration or regulation or a compliance law, but what most people would say, which I think is fair, is if you want to store something like an access token in phone storage, you ought to store it in the secure place, which is like Android Key Vault, I think, and iOS Keychain. The operating system gives you a place to put a secret like that. If you really want to store anything like that on the phone, that's where you should put it. They give you an API to use. Don't just store it right in the storage location that's default for your app, because that's not safe enough. What's better is to just think about your design, and you will usually realize that you don't really need to store those secrets on the phone. For example, one thing I've never seen anybody do, but which would be just fine, would be to use public key encryption and encrypt stuff with a private key that is not on the phone and store that encrypted stuff on the phone. Then when you send it to your server will have the private key to decrypt it. That would be very secure. I've never seen anybody do that. I have no idea why. That would be fine. But, the simple thing, which some people do, although I remember it was one of the major hospital chains, medical chains, Payless Drug or I forget which drugstore, their app actually opened up the keychain, or the, whatever it is in Android, the equivalent of keychain, and they actually stored secrets in the keychain, and then they stored your password outside the keychain. So it was really kind of a shame. But that would be a thing to do. Put it in the operating system's secure storage would be a pretty good practice. It's a good question. Anyway, I saw it was pretty smoky looking today, although it didn't smell bad, but apparently tomorrow and the next day we can expect it to smell bad, and we're going to start getting smoke in town and all that jazz. So as of last year, I got some air cleaners to stick in my apartment, and I got some KN95 masks because I wasn't even thinking so much about COVID as the smoke. We have the smoky season here, and so I highly recommend air cleaners. It really makes a difference. Even if you close the windows, I notice my throat is scratchy, my eyes are burning, and if you just get an air cleaner, which is really just a fan with a filter, it really makes a difference. I got 2 of them, and I run them when the smoke is here, and it makes it a lot nicer in my room. So yeah, we should expect the smoke again, yeah. When I went to China, I gained respect for masks and smoke. Holy crap, Beijing, the first time I went there, it was like there's a pollution index, and if it's over like 100, that's bad, and it was like 290 every day in Beijing. And everybody there is pretty much wearing masks, and I learned to respect that. Next year when we went, the wind was blowing or something that was fine, but it's very frequently terribly polluted in downtown Beijing, and now here because of the fires. This I thought was very interesting. This Jordan Harbinger has this show which is pretty much all about social engineering, really. He doesn't put it that way. But anyway, this talks about the meaning of social position and status. And I thought it was extremely interesting and really extremely helpful if you want to talk about social engineering or understanding the virtue signaling of people that are going around, telling other people what to do and such. I thought it was very insightful and very interesting. I recommend it. So here's an interview with ransomware criminals that run Lockbit ransomware. And the interesting thing is they make it incredibly obvious that they are patriotic Russians. They repeat Russian talking points about America, standard Russian talking points, which, by the way, are not bad at all. Russians are not stupid. And when they write propaganda, it is not stupid propaganda. I mean, they claim their stuff is more efficient and faster than the rest, but then they talk about why they attack America. And they have a standard Russian talking point that I thought was really pretty good. The United States of America was founded by foreign invaders who exterminated the native population and regularly violates human rights to this day. There's a reason why BLM exists in the U.S. Moreover, it's essentially a money printing press, and as a result, they behave as if they were masters of the world. And like any worthy adversary, they have pretty good criticism of us. Osama bin Laden was an adversary who also very accurately saw the weaknesses of America. He said the Americans are like stupid little children. If you give them one punch, they will spend $1 trillion running around hiding everywhere because they'll be so afraid of us. We can totally magnify our effect incredibly. By just one humiliating event, they will destroy themselves, running around like idiots, being upset, starting wars and everything over it. And that's certainly what happened. So, I'm still content enough to be an American, but we absolutely do have flaws, and our more intelligent enemies will point them out to us. You can learn a lot by listening to your enemies. Anyway, the Space Force. It's pretty much been considered a joke by most people. In fact, Jen Psaki got in trouble because they asked her about Space Force, and she laughed, and then she had to apologize and say, oh dear, I don't want to denigrate our military. But pretty much everybody just laughs at them. Nobody knows what they're for. And now they explain their mission is protecting GPS satellites, which the GPS satellites are completely vulnerable, like all satellites. The whole thing about satellites is they don't have any engines or anything, really. They have a very, very weak propulsion system, so they can make minor course adjustments, but they're pretty much just rocks going around a predictable path. So anybody could shoot them down at any time with a missile or a laser or pretty much anything. And they could totally turn off the GPS by shooting down the satellites. That's absolutely true. But I don't think anybody can protect them. I don't know what the Space Force can do about it. But anyway, it's interesting to hear that. They're trying to promote the Guardians of the Space Force. That is their official term. It is not a satire. Sounds like Guardians of the Galaxy, but that is their official military term. All right. Anyway,